Okay, this is the last part of our review for test one, and here I'm going to talk about the extra credit slides, and once again, just concentrating on the other things besides the identification, the attribution, and the date. So other things that you could say, well, in this case, right there written in it, we have like some material information, limestone and red ochre, the fact that it was found at Willendorf in Austria. I can't remember which museum it's located at, but so it is limestone and red ochre is an example of sculpture, and you could talk about how as a that the current theory is that it is some sort of votive figure, and that it in some ways represents fertility, some sort of I would ritualistic interest in representing fertility, and the fertility of the earth. And let's see, what else did I want to say about it? Oh, and also that on some of these types of Venus figures, fertility figures, we see indications that some of them were worn, but not all of them. And okay, yellow and green brushstrokes or Liechtenstein. So the main point that I talked about this piece on the lecture about gesture and gesturalness and expression. And the point I was making about this particular piece is that some artists have taken this idea of extreme gesture and have kind of like critiqued it and even mocked it. And you could see this piece as being sort of a parody of that idea, where he's taking this extreme idea of abstract expressionism, of a painter who makes a work of art that's just these big energetic brushstrokes. And then by making those in this very, very controlled and mechanical manner, of very carefully painting these, extremely precise black contour lines, and then putting in the color in this grid of dots, it is the opposite of expressive. So it is a suggestion of expression, but it is not actually loose or gestural or expressive. Well, it is expressive in a way, but it's not gestural. Okay. And so the main thing that we talked about with this particular piece, we talked about kind of the difference between, in the round as a technical thing, and that a work of art where you can walk all the way around it and it is complete all the way around, versus fully in the round, a work of art where it really feels like it's asking us and engaging us to walk all the way around it, and that every step you take in that walking around the piece is interesting and exciting because each view reveals something new about the sculpture. And this piece also, with its kind of like spiral twist and this opening up of negative space shapes, is negative space volumes, is very engaging and encouraging to us to see it in that kind of three-dimensional, fully in the round way. So it is a form of sculpture. It's reductive sculpture. It's carved. It is, what else did I want to say about it? It's freestanding and fully in the round. Okay. So Cloud Gate, if you remember nothing else, you might remember that it is called the Bean, for at least those people who are in Chicago like to call it that, or the Millennium Park Bean. It's located in Millennium Park in Chicago, and it is an example of sculpture, and it is freestanding and in the round. It's also cast, so it's an indirect sculpture. And I think this is the last. So the main thing, we talked about this painting twice. One, we talked about it in terms of positive and negative shapes, and I talked about how it's kind of difficult to see which thing pulls forward or which thing pushes back, whether we see the green as a negative space and these as two positives on top of it, or vice versa. We see these as dark cutouts. And but the other thing that we talked about, this was when we were talking about color just recently, and we were talking about triadic compositions, and this is an example of a triadic composition using the the additive primary system. So the primary colors for projected light, rather than the primary colors, the traditional primary colors. So the red, green, and blue, kind of on the blue-violet side. They're not exact matches for the red, green, and blue that would be used on your computer screen, but they're pretty close. Okay, and I think that's it for the extra credit identifications. And so for the extra credit questions, what is a space cell? The easy answer is a painting within a painting. It's really any kind of device where within a picture you have a small section that functions as its own kind of smaller picture contained within a larger picture. Okay. Name for a Greek statue of a young boy or athlete standing with one foot forward. And it comes from ancient Greek for boy, and that's choros. Italian word, that's contrapposto. Brief period in Egyptian history, Amarna, A-M-A-R-N-A, period. The major Neolithic town archaeological site is Catalhoyuk. Culture on the island of Crete, that was called the Minoan culture, M-I-N-O-A-N. Define greenware. Greenware is, in ceramics, it's when pots of any type of clay body, but when pots have been made and they're in a process of drying before a bisque firing. Okay, and stone carving, and after they've been bisque fired, they're then called bisqueware. Right? Stone carving is a form of what type of sculpture? That is reductive, D. Relief carvings that are made as a negative inverse of a form that can be used for stamping into clay. That is called counter relief. The slight swelling and tapering of a Greek column is called entasis. The Mona Lisa looks quite different to us today than it did when it was painted, primarily because it is no longer the same size. Someone along the way, somebody cut it down. It was originally, you could see her on a balcony, you could see the architecture of the balcony that she was sitting on, and that has all been cut off of the painting. Okay, the Roman emperor who began the conversion of the empire to Christianity was Constantine. All right, that's it. Okay, I will see everyone on Wednesday.